because if it's what you're accustomed to in training, you don't change it. This is 505 pounds on the close grip. Again, they are both done with a pause. They look easy. Didn't feel easy. 5 pounds for a single and paused it.
Okay, Ed, no.
Attempt, a second lift at 964.5 pounds.
Ed's second attempt is coming in here at 964, as you said. Watch the technique Ed Cohen exhibits. He sets himself up very carefully, Tom. Spotters are watching carefully. Steps back. Waits for the referee's signal. And he gets it.
Look at the strain in Cohen's face.
Begins his descent.
And look at that, blood streaming from his nose. He ignores it completely and completes the lift. His second attempt, 573 pounds for Cohen. He is currently first overall.
Basketball has Michael Jordan. Boxing had Ali and Frazier. Powerlifting has Ed Cohen.
Everyone has come to see Ed Cohen. And on the bench press, the 36-year-old will try to do 573 pounds. Looks pretty good, Nick.
It is. He waits for the referee's signal. He puts it back. Tom, if you'll notice, Ed also uses the plates so that he can get a good foundation under that bench press.
Ed Cohen is a big White Sox fan. They'd be pleased to see this press from Cohen as he just blasted it right up.
Cohen, he knows the rules. He knows the regulations. He's a true sportsman.
Deadlift. And the first man, Ed Cohen, 804 pounds on his first attempt at the deadlift. He is first overall.
One thing about Ed Cohen, he has all three lifts that he majors in. Sometimes in powerlifting, a lifter will weaken in one of the three disciplines.
Not here. He straightens his back, and he's got 804 pounds in the books. Ed Cohen with a stare to the crowd and a point. He seems pretty confident at this juncture, Nick.
Ed Cohen's going after it.
Now here's Ed Cohen. Look at the intensity, the grit, the determination. His second deadlift, 865 pounds. He is currently first overall. And really, Nick, if he can pull this one off, he can sew up the competition.
Ed reaches down. It's coming up pretty smooth, Tom. It's not a problem.
And that is a look of confidence and most likely of victory. He is now 187 pounds in front of the next closest competitor.
Ed Cohen comes up. Look at him shaking, and the muscles are struggling.
Easy way, let's do it! Well, here we've got Ed Cohen, legendary powerlifter. He's agreed to give up some of his time for a quick interview. First, Ed, thanks very much for your time.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it. Just going right back to the beginning, your very first meet. What numbers were you hitting then, and what body weight was it?
I was 16 years old. I was just like a kilo over the 67.5 kilo class. And the funny thing is I was so little that the squat racks didn't go down low enough to take the bar off the racks and put it on my back. And it took me 3 attempts before I finally made it and got stable. It was okay. That was like 220 kilos. And that was 1980. And I benched 135 and deadlifted 225.
So pretty strong numbers from the start.
Pretty good, yeah.
How long were you training before that?
Not real long, just a little bit just to get started in high school because I was so little. I wrestled my first year in high school in like 77 or so, and I was in the 45 kilo class, 98 pounds. Yeah. So I didn't want to be little anymore. I watched Pumping Iron like everyone else, Arnold and Franco. and Lou, and I was like, I gotta do something. I don't like being this little.
So pretty much from your first powerlifting company, that's it. That's what you had to do.
Yeah. I tried a little bodybuilding, but I didn't like the thought of the feeling of dieting and getting weak, and I just wanted to be strong.
Yeah.
That turned me on. When I saw Kaz on TV, that said everything.
It's insane.
Yeah.
When you started, was there many other powerlifters nearby, or did you have to learn more?
No, there was actually a pretty good crowd in Chicago. Ernie France was far west, but there was a world record holder in the bench named James Rouse back then in the 75 kilo class, who in a full meet with 2-hour weigh-ins and IPF rules at the Nationals, he did 217.5 raw. And that's back then, you know. Take that 24-hour weigh-in out now, and that would kill a lot of guys.
Yeah, oh, it would, yeah, for sure. So how long had you been training when you started hitting world records? Pretty soon, or?
Let's see, 1980, and the first world record was 1984.
Right, so
Yeah.
a few years already.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
My body weight went up, when it went up to 82.5, that's when my leverages changed and everything took off.
Yeah. So what, those that don't really know, your ideal training template when you were at your peak?
Just a linear periodization. 10s, 8s, 5s, triples, doubles, no real singles at all. Save it for the meet.
So that's things like Westside, Shaker, Brandon Lilly's. Do you think they can be combined, or do you think
they can be combined? Westside I don't like for raw, but I like it more for some crazy assistance exercises.
Yeah.
What Westside did, Westside's the one that started all the stuff with the programming, because he actually taught people to think.
Yeah.
And think for yourselves instead of just doing what everyone else tells you.
Yeah.
So what I always did is I took that basic template and then I made it into my own. There's little exercises that I like to do that help me. But back then we didn't have bands and chains, we didn't do board presses. It was just different assistance exercises that mimicked your squat, like it would be high bar squats, pause squats, stuff like that. It would be stiff leg deadlifts, deficit deadlifts, and the bench would be more close grips and inclines and wide grips. And then tons of tricep work, back and chest.
Yeah. So if you were in your prime these days competing world level, would you change it around using?
No, I would do a little, pretty much the same because it worked really well. I would do a little bit more flexibility stuff, and I would probably peak just a little bit different, but everything, I can't argue with the results.
No.
It all comes down to how you pick your numbers.
Yeah.
And what I tell people is, they always say, well, what percentage did you go by? Well, some people are really good at doing reps, some people are really good at doing heavies, especially when you get into bigger guys. So I really don't go by that. I have them do a mock training cycle and then see where they end up. And then we start basing all the numbers off of that.
Yeah.
And if you pick your numbers correctly every single training cycle, then go back and lay a bigger base, you build a faster engine.
Yes.
Same thing, as long as you don't get ahead of yourself. A lot of guys now, you see the stupid shit on Facebook, is guys will squat 600, and then all of a sudden they'll be like, oh, I know the next comp in 3 months, I know I've got 700. And shit, like, no, it doesn't happen that way. Take your time, but if you take your time, some small steps over a long period of time, you end up a long way down the road instead of having all the setbacks and saying, oh, this routine sucks. No, actually, your number selection sucked. That's why you didn't make it to the end.
Right. Yeah. I read an interview recently. I seen it on YouTube. Andrei Melinichev.
Yeah.
Pronunciation, Russian. Basically, just squats, benches, and deadlifts in his training. And
He did do some assistance work, but very, very little. And he was at this meet, but he had a little bit of a knee injury, so he didn't want to push anything.
So in his off-season, he runs about 6 to 10 kilometres 2 or 3 times a week.
I don't know about that part, but he does lean up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because he used to do a bunch of boxing when he was younger.
Boxing, right.
Yeah.
Can you imagine any of the other top super heavyweights going?
Well, no wonder why his knee hurts if he's, at 145 kilos running around.
That's probably the reason, yeah. Is there one particular performance that you're most proud of? Most people will probably think 24.63.
Probably the 1,090 when I first told over 2,400 in the 100 kilo class, because it was under IPF rules at the Nationals. I lifted as a guest, so I still had to follow all the same rules. 2-hour weigh-ins, hard IPF judges.
Yeah. What about coming back from the knee injury? Was there a time where you thought, oh, that's it, I'll never lift again, or was it like, I
No.
can't go out unless I have to?
No, I just took my time.
Yeah.
My cousin was my ortho surgeon,
Right.
and he said, you're fine, that'll never blow again. So just take your time.
I should have got the other one done while you were there.
Should have got a lot of things done over there.
Yeah. When you were in your prime, you were known for outdoing a lot of multiply lifters.
Mhm.
Were you ever curious to give a multiply a go to see what numbers you could do?
Not really,
Not really?
because I think because you had to practice with the gear so much that it took away from your own regular strength raw. And I like the feeling of being strong, and I like my own ego being that strong in the gym to be able to do it.
Yeah. What's the next one? Okay, so basically, if you could have done anything differently over the years? Like
Not much, just a little bit peaking different maybe, but that's about it.
So when we say peaking differently,
At the end, I wouldn't have gone so heavy on some doubles and stuff, but
950 for a double is pretty heavy.
no, not really,
Not
not
really?
at the time.
Not at the time.
But I doubled, 900 in the deadlift real easy in the gym before I pulled the 901 at the meet.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of other people wondering, do you think they'll ever compete again?
You know
Or
what,
just-
my shoulders have been killing me. I'm gonna try some stuff when I get back to heal them up. And if they heal up, I can get my bench just decent enough for me. I'll come back and do a raw meet like Pro Raw next year or something like that, because I really like,
In Australia?
oh God, so many people that I've met are so nice, and it has to do with lifting. And I would probably do that. I'm pretty sure I could do 365 on both ends. And in Raw, I mean, walked out with just knee sleeves, not knee wraps.
A lot of the interviews I've read about you, and people I've heard comments from, they always say you're very generous with your time, and I can see that today with my own experience. Do you feel like an obligation to pass that on, as Dave Tate says, live, learn and pass on? Or?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not like you consciously think that. That's just who we are. It's like, how hard is it? People, if you do something that people really appreciate, and they're really nice to you, why wouldn't you do it? It's harder to be an ass than it is to be nice. Yeah, it's like, wow, thank you. Someone asked me, oh, I bet you're used to all these pictures and blah, blah, blah. It was right here at the gym at the hotel. I'm at the Westin, Sydney. And we were in the gym yesterday just looking at it, my girlfriend and I. And two guys came up to us, the manager and someone else, as we were looking around, and said, oh, we wanted to find out if it was you. We checked your signature when you signed in. Can we get some pictures? I bet you're sick of this. I was like, no, I'll be sick of it when there's no one taking pictures of me. I appreciate, why wouldn't you appreciate people that appreciate you and what you do? I'm a lifter, and I lift on the platform, but after that, I'm just a regular guy. I can't do a lot of other things. I can't change my own oil in the car even. So, just appreciate, what other people do too. It's not hard.
I've been competing myself for just over 20 years, probably 70, 75 competitions or something. And one thing I've noticed in nearly every competition, whether it's been overseas or a national level, it doesn't matter if you're competing against the boat right next to you, everyone seems to be trying to help and encourage each other.
They get along pretty well.
Is something just a powerlifting thing, or what do you think that is?
I think it's not narcissistic like bodybuilding. And I mean, sure, there's a few assholes here and there in every sport, but for the most part, everyone thought that Zahir was going to be this big mean guy, and him and Dan Gearing were going to get into it. That was just on video. Zahir was the nicest, sweetest guy I've ever met so far. Yeah. He's hugging everybody and smiling all the time. Now, he's extremely passionate, let's just say that. But he's really, really nice. Him and Dan were talking backstage, and he's hugging Dan, and so there was no big crap there. But yeah, I think it's just more inherent to powerlifting. Or, even though you're doing it individually, you can only do what you could do on that day. Whatever the judges say, whatever gravity lets you do, you do.
That's one thing I like about it, the fact that a lot of sports are it's a perfect 10 and that's it. Can't get any better.
Yeah.
You can always put another couple of kilo on the bar.
Yeah. That's your choice. If some guy at the end pulls a deadlift to win, it may suck, but what can you do other than shake his hand? It's all, well, you got me this time.
This time.
There's always another meet.
That's right. Nutrition, were you very particular?
Not back in those days.
Not back
I
then?
made sure I got enough protein, but if I wanted to cheat, I cheated on whatever I wanted. My mind then, as it is now a little bit, besides being crazy, I always thought, in my twisted way of looking at it, if your mind controls everything that happens in your body, whether excreted, how it's used, if I keep my mind pretty happy and not all skewed and depressed and crazy, it's going to function better.
Well,
That's the way I always thought.
can only help, can't it? Seen a lot of guys I've met over the years, they spend an absolute fortune of money on supplements.
Yeah.
Hundreds of dollars a month, even more sometimes. Do you, in your opinion, do you think they're that important? If you're training hard, eating well, and
Well,
getting
a lot of the stuff is an insurance policy to make sure you get what you're supposed to.
Yeah.
And there's definitely some supplements, after talking to like Charles Poliquin, that can aid in recovery or from inflammation with tendonitis and other things. My advice, honestly, would be Stan Efferding and Flex Wheeler are friends of mine. I'm very lucky. Stan knows a lot about nutrition and the bodybuilding side of it, and more supplements. So I would go to someone like him, who's been in bodybuilding, knows more about diet and stuff, and has used a lot of the stuff. And you got the guy who is in his first meet. He's IFBB Pros Amit.
Yeah.
And he explained to me some stuff and going to sell me some products from one of his sponsors about trying a little bit more pre-workout and intra stuff during the workout, because I explained that I don't have the energy to finish workouts anymore. I don't know if I'm old or what. He says, no, trust me. He says, I'll send you some stuff that's going to work. You can have energy till the end. So if that works, I'll let you know. But, it's just a few little things. Most of it is food. I've never had a real big appetite, so it's harder for me. So sometimes I do have to supplement a little bit to make sure I get everything.
Yeah. Do you think powerlifters are a lot stronger these days as opposed to the 70s, 80s? Or do you
I don't think
equipment?
I don't think it's so much stronger. Well, obviously, if you use equipment, the equipment is a lot better, or it wasn't invented back then, so you can have bigger numbers. But for the other part is training has evolved a little bit, just like the fight game, MMA.
Yeah.
You see the older guys, they get phased out right away because people watch the videos, they figure out their game, then their game evolves into something better.
Yeah.
So it has evolved a little bit, and sometimes it's just the fact that there's so many more lifters that you can have so many more better guys.
Who's the most influential person in your powerlifting career? You can bring it down to one.
From the beginning, Doug Furness, he was my best friend. And he taught me more about keeping it simple with programming and picking the right exercises. I would say him.
I know you said he taught you how to open up in the squat.
Yeah. A lot of people push their knees out, and I always found tremendous stress on my knees if I pushed it out. So I usually concentrated on opening up to keep it blunt, between your balls and your bunghole. Open up that spot, and it makes you sit back more properly and put all the emphasis more on your hamstrings and butt instead of having everything shift forward.
Right.
And it seemed to work way, way better.
Oh, it works, keep doing it.
Yeah.
So what sort of training are you doing these days?
The same as I did before, just not as heavy.
Not as heavy.
Yeah.
So no more 400 pound behind the neck presses?
No, not that heavy.
Okay, is there any, you wanted to mention your Strength Inc. or anything?
Oh yeah, I have a website, Strength Inc. It's actually really cheap every month to join. I've got tons of videos on there and instructional stuff, and we took a month off, but we're going to start every week answering people's questions who are members. And even if you send in videos, we'll critique it online, and then everyone can see, plus yourself, how I critique your video and change things around for you. So it works out pretty well.
That's good. So what do you think of the lifting scene here in Australia?
Love it.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I don't know as much about PA. I do like the one, that picture is probably honestly the best picture in the whole book.
That one?
No, this
Oh,
one. That one
that's insane.
was unbelievable.
Apparently that was done for competition. It wasn't.
So he probably had a little bit more fluid and and stuff in them to blow them up.
And you're shrunken down from off season too.
Yeah. Yeah, I still have those shoes in my gym bag. In this bag, I still have those shoes.
I see.
I wore them at the 1982 Teenage Nationals, and they're still good. I was gonna send a picture into Adidas that shows like the scar in my knee and the date. Same thing with my hip. Show a torn bicep, torn tricep, torn chest, and point to other parts that have been torn, then point to the shoes and say, this is the only thing that's lasted.